Okay, so this video is more about the dovetail technique than the table itself. I'm just going to describe what I'm doing, how I cut the dovetails, how I'm holding the workpiece, etc. Yeah, I'm just clamping a ruler down because I don't have a square big enough. I'm marking out with a pencil first. This is more for my eyes because my eyes are really bad. And I'm just marking off with a little Stanley knife, and this minimises tear out when you're sawing. Here I'm cutting everything to length. I'm using my Japanese cross-cut saw, but you could use a Western saw. This is just the flavour of the month for me. Really enjoying Japanese saws, so I'm using them pretty much all the time now. So I'm cutting everything to length. The leg portions are 500mm and the tabletop is 1 metre. Here I'm just cleaning the saw marks up and making sure everything's square so I can use the cutting gauge when marking out for the dovetails. This is a cutting gauge, and this is my preferred method to mark out for the thickness of the dovetails. You could use a square, just my preference. Yeah, I find it really quick. Now I'm marking out for the dovetails. I just use a divider for this. You could use a ruler. There's other methods. This is just my preferred method. Now I'm just squaring those lines across where I've done the points with the dividers. Here I'm marking out for the angle, the face side if you like. I like to do this at 80 degrees. People go down to 70 degrees, but I just stick with 80 degrees. It's always served as well. And here I'm cutting the tails, and I am a tails man. I like to start with the tails first. So I like to get me 90 degrees across the end grain and then drop down to the face and get the 80 degrees. It's really imperative that you get the 90 degrees on the end grain. You can go off your line a little bit on the face. It's not so important, not at this point, but you must have that 90 degree on the end grain, or otherwise you're going to see this when you connect your dovetails. You can notice how I'm holding the workpiece here. This is just 2 clamps and affixing the board to my Japanese toolbox. It's got tools in it obviously, so that weights everything down, and as you can see it holds it quite nicely. Okay, so after I've cut all the tails, I'm just creating a little valley. So I'm basically putting the chisel about 2mm away from the knife hole I created with the marking gauge, and this creates a little valley, just somewhere for us to register my chisel when I clean the shoulders up after the bow saw. I like to use a bow saw or a coping saw to remove the waste. Some people like to do it with a chisel, but I find this is the quickest way. So when I'm cutting the waste, I like to get as close to my knife hole as possible. I try to go for like 1 to 2mm, and it's less work with a chisel when I'm cleaning up the shoulders after I've finished. Now I just remove the very edge portions of the dovetails. Same again, create a knife hole, use a chisel for a little valley to accept a saw. So when I'm cutting down with a saw, I saw away slightly from the shoulder, and once I've done that I finish up with a chisel. It just keeps everything nice and neat. Now I'm cleaning up all the shoulders where I've removed the waste. Um, Sometimes if I've veered too far away from my line, so there may be, I don't know, somewhere in the region of like 3 to 4 millimeters of waste, I will actually remove some of that waste before I get anywhere next to the knife hole. Because if you do try to go straight at the knife hole, chances are it's going to move the knife hole back, which is going to create a gap, and you're going to see this when you put the dovetails together, which isn't what we want. Once I've done that, I go straight up to my knife hole and I remove the material. I go about halfway, I go all across one side, I turn the board over and then I go halfway again. This normally leaves a little bit of a hump or bump in the middle. Then I just pare down and remove this hump here with my chisel. Here I'm just using some 90-degree jigs or clamps, whatever you want to call them. They're quite handy. So I put a chisel on the shoulder and get everything flush. I clamp that down. I do the same to the other side. And then I present the board to it, and this holds it. These jigs are really good for wide boards, which I normally do wide and long boards. You don't really need to bother with something like this if you're doing like drawers and such, but I always tend to do things like this, so they come in handy for me. Yeah, I've presented the board, which is going to contain the pin section. I get it clamped into place. So here there's a cupping in the board, which is a regular occurrence for me, and I'm sure for many other people. So a simple way to solve this when you're marking out is just to clamp a straight piece of wood across the bow. It gets everything straight, so you can line out and your dovetails aren't affected by it. Now I'm marking out for the pin section. I'm going to show you a pencil here. This is how I sharpen the pencil. It's really thin. This is really beneficial to do this. It gets in between all the tails really well. So when I'm marking out, I make sure that the pencil line is in the corner. It's really easy, like to veer from the corner, and if you veer from the corner, you're not on line, and this is going to show when you actually cut the dovetails and you put them together. So this is something you should really take note of. Exactly the same again. I'm just marking out with the cutting gauge, same as I did with the tail section. Here I'm just squaring my lines down on the face. Yeah, I didn't mention this before, but it's the same when I'm marking out for the tails as well. I mark on one face and I mark on the end grain. There's just no point in marking on the other side because you can't see it. And once you've already started your saw cuts, you can't really adjust that saw cut into a third plane. So it's really pointless marking out on the back. Now I'm cutting out the pins. This is a lot different than the tail section. On the tail section, on the end grain, I says you had to cut it 90 degrees, make sure that's 90 degrees, and then as you cut down at 80 degrees, it wasn't too bad if you went offline. But now this is a lot different. So your 90 degrees on the face plane has to be 100%. and also your angle on the top on the end grain has to be 100%. Also, when you're cutting, you want to make sure you leave the pencil lines on, because obviously if you take the pencil lines off or you cut on the pencil line, your dovetails are going to be slack. So just bear that in mind when you're cutting them, and obviously make sure you're cutting on the waist side. It is actually quite easy to cut on the side that's not the waist, so bear this in mind when you're cutting them. Same again here, just creating a little valley for my chisel later when I come to remove the waste material. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to remove with my bow saw again. So while I had everything set up here, I decided to make a little arch in the leg portion of the table. This is just for in case the floor's uneven. So this really helps, and it's a nice little feature on the design which I wanted to do. So I'm just cutting some relief cuts here. Then I follow up with the bow saw, and then I finish off with the spoke shave. A good tip when using a spoke shave is to keep the sole well lubricated. Sometimes it can chatter, it can become really difficult to use it, and a lot of the times it's just because the sole isn't lubricated. So keep the sole lubricated, and make sure your blades stay sharp. Here I'm just rounding over the outside corners, the bottom of the feet. This is my preferred method. I use the chisel, get the basic shape, then finish off with a Shinto rasp, then a normal file, sometimes a little bit sandpaper. So this is just exactly the same as when I do the tail section, other than you're removing more waste, and you do angle the chisel, so that's really the only change. I will say same as all other shoulders that you're cutting, you should have a nice sharp chisel. Don't be too greedy. Don't try to take too much off at once, because you can and will move your knife wall. And try and take your time. Here I'm just removing the middle section. When you come from either side, I personally tend to get like a bit of a hump in the middle. So this is how I finish them off. You've got to be really careful. You don't go all the way through to the other edge. But this usually guarantees quite a straight edge. So this is my preferred method. This is the tail section. So here I'm just relieving the inside corners. I only do 3/4 of the edge. If you were to do all of the edge, obviously you would see this when the dovetails were together. So I'm only doing 3/4 of the edge. This really helps. If you haven't done this, or you don't do this, I would suggest doing it. It really helps to allow the pin section to go in quite easily. So I do this all the time now. It really helps. Now I start putting the table together to see what the fit of the dovetails are like. Here I'm hammering in, and as you can see, everything's too tight. The reason I am doing this because it will leave an indentation in the pin section, which gives us indication of how tight the tails are and where I should remove material. Here I'll start removing some material, obviously because the pins are too tight. So when I'm removing material, I try not to remove any material from the front edge and the very top where the end grain is. The only time I do remove from these areas is when I'm way off my pencil line. But other than that, I try not to, and it's more just the back edge. So when I'm doing it, I try to come roughly about 1 to 2 millimeters away from the front edge, and this will just compress when you put the dovetail in to the tail section, and it's the same with the top as well. I've been doing this for quite some time. I seem to get reasonable results doing this, so this is my preferred method. I may do this once, twice. I very rarely need to do it 3 times, but you should take your time, because if you rush it, you can see that you've rushed it in your dovetails, and sometimes I will get a little bit impatient, and on this particular table you can see that I did rush things, so I advise you not to rush and just take your time with this method. Now add the glue. I only ever add the glue to the pin section. I never do it to the tail section, it's just too much faffing about, so I make sure there's a generous amount on the pin section, and I've never had no issues. It's quicker. Then I just clamp everything up and check that everything's square, and I left the table to dry for approximately 24 hours. Now I'm marking out so I can round the dovetails. You don't have to round the dovetails, you could leave them square, or all manner of things you could do to it, but again, this is my personal preference. So this is just a guide for me when I use my plane. So this isn't a very good shot, but as what I'm doing, I'm removing the corner portion, so when I do start taking shavings with a plane, I don't split out with the end. Alternatively, you could just come from either end. Also, I would advise when you're taking shavings, not to be too greedy with your shavings, and also use a sharp plane. If you're a bit too greedy with the depth of your shavings, you can actually tear out the corners of the dovetails, which I have done. It's not a good look. Here I'm just finishing off with a shinto. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. Followed by a file, and then some sandpaper usually works really well. It gives you really good round dovetails. Pretty good results most of the time. Just about all the time, if I'm honest. Very little you have to do after this. I'm just adding a chamfer to the outside edges. This is just a personal preference for me. Something I like to do. After this, I give it a final sanding, and then I added 2 coats of Osmo oil and some beeswax, and that was the table finished.